My name is Emily Logan and I'm known as what's called the Chief Commissioner here in Ireland in the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission. And that is a national organisation, and we're one of 106 organisations around the globe who are dedicated to promoting human rights in the countries that we work in. A big part of our job is about the fight. It's about the leadership fight, and it's about fighting with and on behalf of people who maybe don't have a voice themselves, or maybe are completely invisible and whose situation is not known in Ireland. Only 2 weeks ago in Ireland, where we surveyed thousands of people to find out their attitudes towards equality and human rights. We also looked at the age across the population in Ireland to see who's the most sympathetic group to treating other people equally and to respecting the rights of other people. So what age group do you think scored highest on being respectful and being sympathetic to other groups of people? 16 to 23 age group. So young people, by a mile here in Ireland, are much more positive in their attitudes to social justice, to fairness, to equality, and much more idealistic than any other group. So as we get older, disappointingly, we're not as empathetic, we're not as understanding to other people's situations. So for me, Nicholas mentioned I was Ombudsman for Children for 10 years. For me as Chief Commissioner, young people and their influence is hugely important here in Ireland. So that's why we as a Commission are going to focus on young people as well, because your ability to influence is really huge. Not just your ability to influence your own peer group, because I know people talk a lot about young people and they're the future. We talk a lot in Ireland about the future of young people, but that kind of drives me mad a little, because young people, for me, have huge influence today. Your individual behaviours, how you treat each other, whether you treat each other well or respect each other, can affect an individual person's life. For those people who really believes that your childhood molds you, shapes you, and your experiences in childhood are things that you can choose to use. You choose to sit back and feel sorry for yourself, or you choose to say, that experience has taught me something really, really important about myself, and I'm going to use it. In my family, I learned all about teamworking. I learned about negotiating. I learned that you're not the centre of the world. There's 9 other people in our house. We'd 1 bathroom and a long queue. So you're not the centre of the world, and you need to understand that to be successful and to be a leader, you cannot work on your own. You can be successful, but you can't be exceptional unless along that path and along the way, you treat people well. You treat people with respect and you give them the dignity that they deserve. I knew what I wanted to do when I left school was I knew I wanted to work with children and young people. So that bit I did know. I wasn't absolutely certain what I wanted to do when I left school. And certainly when I was your age, I was not as confident as I am now. I was quiet at school. I wasn't very good at school. I certainly didn't stand out as one of those A students where the teachers remembered me at school. I wasn't memorable at school. I didn't have anything like the confidence that I have now. So when I left school, I decided I would train. Chantel, you're a nurse. I would train as a children's nurse. When I was 19, I had this really important moment in my life where an event happened, and it'll happen for all of you, where a key event will happen that will change your opinion about yourself and what you want to do, or might change your opinion about what you see around you and your ability to influence or impact. For me, it happened when I was 19. I was working in A&E, accident emergency. In the States, you call it emergency departments. And an 18-month-old baby came in, and this baby had cigarette burns all down her arm, all down the other side of her arm, and on her bottom, on her buttocks, where somebody had placed her on the top of a cooker to stop her crying, okay? So I was 19, so that was my first experience in life where I had a really shocking moment in my life where I realised that not everything in life is as nice as I thought it was. Did you ever hear people talking about a fire in your belly, where you develop a passion about something, where you see something and you say, that's what I'm going to do? And at that moment I decided I didn't realise that children could be treated badly or unfairly or even abused in their own homes. So I made the decision that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to devote my life to children and young people, to getting other people to treat children better. So that was a really critical moment for me. So I continued in nursing for many years. By the age of 26, I was a manager, so I was running a hospital ward. I had 35 staff, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had just started. I was full of passion and enthusiasm, but the big thing I did know was that I absolutely loved what I did. And while there were moments that I was afraid, and that was one of the things I was going to say to you, is there will be moments in your leadership opportunities that bring fear or present you with fear, and to give yourself permission to feel that fear. Because sometimes if you avoid fear, you're avoiding the challenge. I hadn't had any third level, any college education, and I was learning from people. I was observing life. I was observing some very difficult moments in people's lives, but I was learning, I was maturing, I was developing myself as a person, as a human being. And I wasn't one of those people in my career or in my leadership where I sat down and I strategized and I was calculated about what I was going to do. For most of the jobs that I've been in, it's generally been because somebody else has tapped me on the shoulder and said, do you know, I think you'd be really good at this job. So that's what happened to me when I came back to Ireland, was somebody in Great Ormond Street who was a leader and somebody who was a generous leader who tapped me on the shoulder and said, you know what, you're ready now to run your own hospital. So one of the things I have learned is not to focus on yourself. Keep your eye on the prize, and the prize is the difference that you want to make or the people that you're working for. That's the thing that keeps me going, and sometimes when I'm in those fearful moments, I think of an individual family, an individual child, an individual young person, and think that's why I'm here, just reminding myself, going back and reminding myself of why I'm in the job. In 2004, 2 people sent me a copy of an advert. Am I using the right word? In the States, what do you call it? Advertisement. In the newspaper for this job called Ombudsman for Children. And it was the first time we were going to have an Ombudsman for Children in Ireland. And the job, what appealed to me about the job was not just the advertisement, was the fact that young people were involved. Young people were involved from the very beginning. They decided what the job was going to be. They decided, more importantly, the person and the qualities that they wanted that person to have. So they recruited over 100 young people, and those young people then peer nominated. So each group, like you're in your groups on your leadership program, each of those groups nominated a person who was then going to interview me. So I was interviewed for the job by 15 young people. The youngest was 11 and the oldest was 17. And I had never been interviewed by children and young people. Even though I'd worked with children at that stage for 23 years, I'd never been interviewed by them. So I went for the job and I got it and I was delighted, and then we went off to the house in the park, and I remember the president signing the certificate, because you get a legal seal of office, and she said to me, I'm about to change your life, and I was going to go, don't sign it, because I was happy with my life. But from a career point of view, my life has changed enormously in the last 12 years. So for those first 12 years, the key bit was about participation of young people. It's about hearing. I know Nicholas mentioned kindly that I listen to young people, but it's very fundamental to working on behalf of children and young people. You're not there to decide that you know better than they do. You're there to work with them. So there are some things that I need to share with you. Sean mentioned some of the lessons, and I've written down kind of 4 key lessons that I've learned. Along the way, of course, I've made mistakes. You never learn unless you make mistakes. It's what you do with the mistakes and what you do with the learning afterwards. It's about how you respond. So for the first one, I was thinking back, what was one of the big mistakes that I made on a number of occasions? And one was about not asking for help, about thinking that I could do it on my own, and thinking that it doesn't matter, I love this job so much and I know what I'm doing, that I don't need help. And that's a huge mistake, is to isolate yourself and to never ask for help. So I'd encourage you to think about along the way on your own personal leadership journey, to think about asking for help. The second was, I worried too much about what people thought. I was worried whether they would think that I was good enough for the job, whether I was doing a good job. So I spent too much time worrying about what other people thought of me, and not enough time about developing myself and my own confidence. The third thing then is about mentorship. And that is something that, sadly, I haven't worked on until later in my career. So I'd say probably in the last only 6 or 7 years have I reached out and asked somebody to work with me as a mentor. And by that what I mean is, there are two different things that I've learned. One is mentorship is very good, but it very much depends on what you're looking for in a mentor. And you can find people who will be cheerleaders, who tell you you're marvellous, you're wonderful, you're great. But that isn't always what you need to hear. So for me, the most valuable person to confide in is somebody who will tell you the truth about yourself, but in a way that's respectful and a way that kind of encourages you, kind of brings you on that journey. And the fourth one is about fear, because often people think that fear is a very bad thing and a very negative thing. And when I look back on my career, some of the things that have been most exciting have also been the things that I've been most fearful of. Let me give you an example. When I was Ombudsman for Children, the first press conference I did, where I invited the press to make this big announcement, I said, I'm going to change the Irish Constitution. We're going to change the law and make it stronger so that children are respected in this country. And some people thought I was absolutely loco and thought, this woman just, either she's naive or she just doesn't have a clue what she's doing. But I just thought, you know, I was fearful on the day, and there were people in the audience who were lawyers, there were journalists, there were people questioning me, asking me lots of questions about why I thought it was going to make a difference. But I stood there as the perspiration ran down my back thinking, this feels right. I'm scared, but it feels right. So it's to give yourself permission sometimes to feel that fear, to say it's actually all right. Don't panic about the fear. It doesn't mean that things are wrong. Sometimes that fear can actually be a sign that you're doing the right thing.